Yeah.
Sam's always our referee, and we love that about him. Because otherwise we would chit chat like all the way to the end. All right.
Sam, is the chat open for everybody?
I'll open it right now.
And I see Sumit hopped on. Hi, Sumit. So everyone's here, so we can get started. As long as we're streaming, right, Sam? We're all good to go?
All good to go. Let's kick things off.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the People Strategy Forum. My name is Jules, and we're so happy to have you here. We have a nice full house today. So a lovely panel of experts, a great guest speaker, and today's topic is setting up your team for success with a NeuroSavvy approach. So if you've never been to one of these People Strategy Forums, you just kind of registered randomly and you don't really know what you're diving into, well, let me give you a little bit of insight. So we're here really to engage and energize and elevate your employees and your company. So we get together every week. Every week is different. It's always free. And not only do we do it live, we stream it across multiple platforms, but we also turn it into a podcast. So if audio is more your thing, you can also listen to it in the podcast version. So we bring a different guest speaker every week, and they come and chat with our expert panel of hosts as well. And we discuss all types of topics. So here, if you're on the Zoom right now, you can see our panel of hosts here. I'm going to introduce you to everybody. We'll start with Char, and Char is a business owner. She's created and run multiple companies. She has a significant amount of experience in HR. She's worked as a career coach and consultant as well. We have Wendy, who works with CompTeam. She specializes in talent management. She's certified in the TMA method, and she's been helping to run things here, getting speakers in. So we're grateful for that. We also have Howard, who also works with CompTeam. He is a compensation advisor and consultant. He helps companies transform in the department of compensation by using new and improved technologies and softwares. And lastly, we have Sumit. So Sumit is a people strategist. He works with all kinds of companies, helping reshape them and helping them create a roadmap so that they can change and experience HR transformation. He also helps in the areas of diversity and inclusion as well. And then lastly, we have Sam, who is not only does he bring all this together here at the People Strategy Forum, but he is the founder and CEO of CompTeam. His team is expanding very much so at the moment, and he is everything you need to know about compensation and talent initiatives. Sam's the man. So that brings me to our lovely guest speaker. We've just been chatting it up. I already know she's going to be great. So get your, pen, paper, your notes ready, because we have Keshawn Hughes, and we're very excited to have her because she is the founder of NeuroSavvy Leadership. She's a neuro coach, neuro leadership consultant, and she helps HR and DEI tech leaders specifically. She helps them develop and retain an inclusive workforce. So she actually uses a neuroscience-based framework. And, neuroscience and NLP, that's like the big thing right now. So I'm really excited about this. Wendy and I were just saying, we're like really excited just for like on a personal level. But she's also a keynote speaker. So she's spoken for a lot of large companies. She's worked with LinkedIn, Ulta Beauty, Twitch, FullScript. So she's got a lot of experience, and we're very excited to welcome her. So Keshawn, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I have been looking forward to this conversation. And when you mentioned neuroscience, I light up. So I'm so excited to know that you all want to talk more about it too. My family and my friends, they hear about it all the time. They're done with it. So now I have new people to talk to about it. And this is what's so exciting for me today. So thank you.
Well, it's great to have you on, Keshawn. So can you start by just telling us a little bit about your journey? I mean, how did you get into this neuroscience business and helping the people that you help?
Thank you for that question. My journey in leadership. So my background is in marketing and project management, and I did that for 18 years. And loved it and enjoyed it. That's where I've trained in. That's what my degrees are in. I did it for companies like Noel Rubbermaid and LexisNexis Risk Solutions and Sharewell, which was recently purchased a couple of years ago. But I joined them right as they were growing from that startup version of themselves into more enterprise engagements. And I did that and enjoyed it. But for myself, I began to personally feel a disconnect internally between my work and myself. And it showed up as burnout. I didn't even have the language for it at the time. But once I recognized that that's what it was, I sought help. I got professional help and really quickly was beginning to recover. And as a part of my recovery journey, I went back to school. I found things that I was interested in. One of the markers for burnout is just feeling inefficacy, like what you're doing doesn't really matter. And so I started to connect to what really matters to me again, which was communication and connecting to people and talking instead of doing the things that I was doing like a robot at work. That's how I felt. And I discovered neuroscience-based leadership models in graduate school. So that's when the light bulb started to gleam for me. And I just followed that path. You mentioned podcasts. I'm so glad this is a podcast. I'm an avid podcast listener. And I happened to hear the same neuroscientist on 3 different podcasts. And so it just piqued my interest again. And I said, well, let me just set up a phone call with her and see what she has going on. What she's saying is so interesting to me. And by the end of that phone call, I had given her all my money. I had signed up for her leadership program and the rest is history. Like in 2019, that's when I started my own neuro coaching and neuro leadership consulting training right before the pandemic hit in 2020. And so in that March, April, if you want to go back in time, I know that might be hard for people to want to go back to that place, but there was so much uncertainty. There was so much fear around what we were entering, what we were going into. And about 4 months into my neuroscience coaching training program and very newly off of my leadership degree, master's degree that I had in strategic communication, I felt primed and ready to transition from the work that I was doing as a product release manager, a senior product release manager for my tech company that I was working for, to sharing this knowledge in a way that could be practical, easy to understand, so leaders could feel a sense of well-being and resilience as we're still moving out of that pandemia stage. So, and that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. So that's it. That's a long story, but kind of like personal and, organizational. That's how it all ties together for me.
No, that's great. That's great. And so in your learnings of basically, what should leadership know about neuroscience? And I mean, there's a lot of, it sounds so technical, right? I mean, that, so what should they know about this and how should they leverage it in their practice?
What has brought me to I think what lit me up about neuroscience is that it's so practical and it's something that I feel like across all of our differences, we're all uniquely made across regions, diversity and identities. There are so many ways in which we're unique, right? But one point that we all share is we all have brains. And they tend to function in similar ways. We experience them differently. We experience them as either neurotypical or neurodivergent. And there's all these different labels and ways in which people say that we show up. But our brains tend to function the same. When we're in distress, we tend to go into fight flight. And that's across the human experience. When we're calm and at peace, we have ability to be innovative and to connect with one another and to be creative. And so understanding that, just how we work internally, it's something that we all share. And in this time when things can seem so off kilter and when we can feel disconnected, as I once did, I find that just having an understanding of neuroscience and practical neuroscience language, not the really technical kind, but the kind that I talk about as a communicator and as a project manager, I have some steps to follow, making it easy for people to want to tap into what that is and then share it for themselves and then others.
Now you mentioned neurotypical versus neurodivergent. Can you dive into that? What does that mean?
Yes, well, neurodiversity is the umbrella term to explain what I was saying, how we all have unique experiences of how our brains show up in the world. And so there are a diversity of us on the call right now. So there's a group of us and we all experience life differently and our brains differently. And what we find is that culture defines how typical brains should work. So, and that is what gets espoused in organizations and in interpersonal communication, when we have these understandings of how we are to perform and how we are to show up at work in life. And neurodivergence is one in which people possibly don't fit within that standard. They may have had labels or diagnoses like ADHD or synesthesia or autism on the autism spectrum. And so they tend to operate differently. But like I said, the basics of how their brain functions is the same. When they are in distress, they will express certain markers. And when they feel joy and calm, they express certain markers. So those are some of the labels that are used to just describe ways in which we show up and how our brains function and things that we can notice about each other as we engage at work.
Well, we are a very diverse world, right? I mean, there's a bunch of different ways of the way people think, though, genders, ethnicity, and so forth. I mean, there's just a lot of different versions of humanity, and so, and as you assess or help people understand themselves better and then understand their people better, what is your method of going about and understanding that? Is there a framework that you use?
Yes, it starts with awareness. And I said this in the promo videos. I don't know if anyone saw that, but a neuroscience-based approach, my approach to neurocoaching and neuroconsulting is inside out. So helping leaders to become more self-aware. Research shows that when leaders are self-aware, they're happier, their organizations perform better, and they're better at leading teams. And so that's where we start, just with awareness of self. And then as we become more aware of ourselves, as we understand the ways in which we function, what does cause us to have distress, what helps us to stay focused, and using practical, very connecting language like neuroscience language. Like when I say fight, flight, everyone nods their heads. We understand what that means, right? And so using that kind of language as you're leading a team, as you're describing a new project, as we're going into a new initiative, it helps to bring us all along the journey together where we all have a similar understanding and expectations can be met in that way. So it starts with awareness.
Now, of course, awareness is a great segue and of what's going on today. I mean, whenever a leader is dealing with societal issues, that are pressures and economic issues and business issues and so forth, what are the top things that leaders should be aware about right now that are related to your approach?
The first one that comes to mind is burnout, and that comes just from my personal experience, like I shared, particularly in very results-driven organizations where you have high-achieving people, even perfectionistic people who are there, they love what they do, they love their work, and they want to perform well. Those are some markers to look for. Those typically, that can start the path to burnout if you have those characteristics as an individual, where you're driven, results and numbers and performance metrics are very important to you, and you will do that at the cost to your own health and well-being. And so some things that leaders and organizations should really keep in mind now is the propensity for burnout. Burnout numbers are more than they ever have been. When I started my work in 2019, the World Health Organization, that was the year that they deemed it as a worldwide epidemic, where this was not just here, well, I'm in the US, it's not just something for US-based companies to think about, it's global, and it's affecting workers from around the world. And so it's something that I think leaders should be aware of, organizations should be aware of as they look at their culture and what drives them, what's important to them, what their values are, tying it to health and well-being at the top and the bottom, so that as you're cycling through projects, as you're moving year to year, you always have that as a grounding force. We want our workers to be well. We want our leadership, me as a leader, I want to be well so that I can then model that. I can then express that and then connect with people who I work with in that way. That's so important and key. And that's what drives me. That's what helped me to get to the place of not only being a neuro coach in organizations, but founding my organization, NeuroSavvy Leadership, and helping them to focus on that specifically.
Yeah, having a healthy workplace is so important today, especially as we've had I think most leaders have understood that the importance of mental health
Yes.
over the past few years, and how it really drives performance and employee happiness and customer happiness. And so, but one thing I want to dive in that you mentioned is the concept of perfectionism. So a lot of leaders out there, a lot of business owners out there have been successful because they're operating at a higher standard. They're delivering better products and services than their competitors. And so in a sense, some of this perfectionism has helped them, but where do they find the balance? When should they be concerned?
Once again, your own health. So, oh my goodness, there are so many different ways that our bodies, they either tap us on the shoulder before they then begin to slap us across the face, and then we're flat out. Okay, they knock us out. And so just going back to that self-awareness, having not just mental awareness of your environment and how you're navigating in your environment, but what signals and cues is your body sending you to let you know, hey, it's time to look away from the computer. It's time to take some deep breaths. Maybe take a break and take a walk around the block if you can. If you have pets, I have one that keeps me, I have to take him out. He's actually kind of like calling to me right now, looking at me, giving me the stare like, we should go out right now. And so, but just having that type of internal body awareness is one way, once again, that we lead from the inside out. And then as you get to know yourself, you can then spot that in other people as you communicate and as you connect, and we have update meetings with our teammates. We want to practice that empathetic listening, be empathetic leaders, and have that support to where even if they don't say it with their mouths and we don't hear it, we can sense it. And we follow those senses. We take those empathetic guesses where we can pick up on the cues of their body language, possibly their work performance dwindling or them beginning to make mistakes that they typically don't make. That's how it can show up in subtle ways. And if we can address it initially, we can avoid burnout on the inside, on the outside, after years and years or even weeks and weeks of being in those states in which we're not listening to our bodies and giving ourselves the breaks we need as human beings.
Yeah, being aware of ourselves is super important, as you mentioned. But one thing is as I'm watching Sumit's cat walk across the screen, being aware and and then also the reminders of it's great to have those pets. So
Yes.
Sumit, tell us about how having animals can help remind us of taking breaks and having a measured life.
So a lot of time you get a forced break when somebody just comes and sits on your keyboard and refuses to budge. Good time to take a break. And of course, the cat ate my homework is a very, very real excuse that I can give to some clients because it happens. But jokes aside, I think that's one of the best things about working from home or working at one's own desk is that we've got one dog and 3 cats and a human child. So there always is a lot of chaos, and it does strengthen your ability to deal with ambiguity and chaotic situations for sure.
Oh, I love that language. And as a recovering perfectionist myself, all those things you mentioned, a cat walking across my keyboard, years ago, that would have sent me into a tizzy. I would have gotten extremely upset. And what neuroscience shows is that when you get into a distress state or an upset state, it can take 20 to 60 minutes to come back to a state of calm and peace. And when we're focused on performance and we want to be productive and have great results, who has time to wait 60 minutes to come to a state of calm, to get back focused, to do the work and to deliver the results that you're looking to do? And so, yes, training yourself to become more comfortable with ambiguity, becoming more empathetic as a leader, having human children, yes, as well as fur children in your life, and just allowing life to happen and recognizing I'm still safe. Because that's what our brain is responding to, threat or reward. Is this a threat to me? Is this a threat to my survival? And in modern times, most of us, all of us here on this call are safe. And so really being able to look at our distress when that happens through a lens of realism, is this something I really need to distress myself over? Is this something I can control in any kind of way? And if so, I can just start with controlling my breathing. If that's the only thing I can control during this very difficult conversation, that's what I'll do. Take some deep breaths. And these are, I like to call them invisible hacks that people can do, particularly in virtual and hybrid workplaces now. There are so many ways that you can keep yourself in a state of homeostasis or calm and peace so that you can be your best self health-wise and deliver the best results you can work-wise.
Definitely makes a whole lot of sense. But one question I have here is, how do we address the cultural aspects of this? For example, you spoke about companion animals. If I remember correctly, 1 in every 3 households in the US has a cat. And so therefore, one would assume that somebody in the US is a lot more used to seeing cats or is very familiar with their behaviors and is more welcoming. Whereas in a country like India, there's a lot of superstition about cats, and they're considered evil omens and stuff like that. So a lot of people might just be put off by the sight of a cat, or may not be able to relate to folks like us going on for hours about, oh, my cat did this, my cat sat here, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So how do we bring that element to create some kind of inclusion despite the diversity?
What a great question. It really speaks to the differences that we started our conversation about. We are all unique and different. And in the workplace, I think it's the best opportunity to really put that to the test and see how kind you can be as a human, how curious you can be. And so that's one of the NeuroSavvy markers that I like to train on is curiosity. And so approaching differences with curiosity, as opposed to implicit bias that can come up that we can't control. We just recognize as humans, we have that. Everyone does. And so our culture can feed those. And it can be a situation in which we're not even aware, once again, going back to awareness, that we have certain biases. So curiosity, communication, perspective taking. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So if I'm in a culture, in the workplace can be really great about this. This is where the training and development can come into place, having programs where learning and development is that overarching communication that everyone gets within the company, everyone is welcome to, and there are expectations to be met for employees to have these trainings. So they can be introduced to differences in this way. They can be exposed to it. We've heard of exposure therapy. The more and more you're exposed to something, the less and less your brain might react in distress to it. But then to actually communicate about it, to have conversations, and to have conversations where curiosity is there and undergirds it, I think is very helpful and useful. And then to have people who can mediate those conversations as well. And so I think those are some key factors at play to have incorporated into the workplace so that we can come together and live differently and then be celebrated, feel comfortable in our differences so that we can, once again, produce the best results possible.
I like that. But one thing that Sumit mentioned is that, in a lot of leaders, a lot of people in business are, have their own personal baggage. And also there can be cultural norms that are different across the world, as Sumit mentioned. And I think that as we grow as a global community, we need to be more comfortable with the concept of that variability across the globe, the volatility of the nature of the economy, and things such as pandemics and so forth that we've learned to deal with. And but I think that a lot of leaders right now are still they still lack a sense of control, and they want it back. They're like, hey, I want people back in the office. We need to, change the way we've been doing things so I have more control. And I think that is very limiting, because as we just mentioned just now, and we were using the example of Sumit's cat walking across the screen, and how, just a few years ago, that would be a horrifying experience for some individuals, because we in business, we somehow developed this professional facade, that this is a way we do business. If I get outside of these parameters of what's considered societal norm here, that I'll be considered less professional. I'll be considered not reliable, untrustworthy. Bring all these things to it. And so I think that we've been very fortunate in growing over the past 5 years of understanding that, hey, we are human. And that we should all embrace each other as individuals and understand the environments that we are in. And I think that gives us a great advantage in business. And I think that it's a disservice to move back to that old framework of everybody has to be in the office, you have to be in your cubicle, these things. What are your thoughts there, Keshawn?
Yes, I love that you brought up the word trustworthy. How people had the thought that if I could have more control, then that comes across as more trustworthy. I'm not wording it in the way that you so eloquently did, but the foundation of that is trust. So having trust and knowing how to build it, knowing how to cultivate it within yourself and others. And I think that's foundational. That is so key. And it's work. It takes work to build trust. It takes work. It takes communication. Once again, a lot of dialogue, two-way dialogue instead of just one-directional dialogue. That's a certain type of leadership where we have authoritarian or authoritative leaderships that are one-directional. And in crisis situations, in for short time periods, and in certain industries, that is necessary. That kind of leadership is useful. But in modern workplaces, typically the tech environments that I'm in, people want flexibility and they want to be trusted. They want to be judged based on what they're able to deliver, and they want to be able to be authentic in who they are and show up as their whole selves as much as possible, as much as they're comfortable to do that. And it helps feed the work. Workplaces that are more inclusive, that's what we're talking about, have been shown to perform better and make more money and have happy, healthier employees. And so we want to take steps towards that, starting with awareness. If you're finding you're coming into an awakening and saying, hey, I'm not a very trusting leader and my organization is very limited in its ability to trust others. So what steps can we take? What incremental steps can we take to get to that place so that our values that we espouse actually do align with our actions daily? That's so important.
So I would like to dive into the concept of trust a little bit more. And Howard, I know in your line of work, when you're dealing with systems and so forth, and ensuring that you're driving expectations, sometimes you might have a particular, like a vendor that doesn't meet expectations and so forth, and there's been a violation of trust. In your perspective, Howard, I mean, how do you gain that trust back in working with the important vendors that you work with?
When it comes to the vendors, there is a certain amount of trust and belief that you have to put in. So, you don't begin to trust someone until you trust them, right? You got to give them the opportunity. So, if something goes wrong, then it's a question as to, okay, what actions are they going to do to get it back on track? Now, if they don't get it back on track, you're going to lose complete trust in them. But if they're making an effort, I think you extend to them some leeway in terms of rebuilding the bridges. So I think that, it's a lot of communication, open dialogue, and giving people the opportunity to correct what's off track.
Yes. My recommendation, I love what you said there, Howard. My recommendation to people is to, once again, communicate early, often, and directly as you possibly comfortably can. we forget. We have other priorities. Life happens. And so how do we bring it back to the center? How do we bring ourselves back to what the area of focus should be? It's through nudges, gentle nudges, setting deadlines, having those update meetings, regularly scheduled meetings where people can be alerted to, oh yes, by the time this meeting happens, I need to now be able to deliver this update, this information. And if things aren't going well, if I'm not meeting a commitment, what steps can I take to make that commitment? Meeting commitments is key and essential to building trust.
Very early on in my career, I was in a very high pressured environment in financial services. And one of the things I learned early on in my HR career was being responsive.
Yes.
Even to get back to someone and say, you know what, I don't have the answer for you yet, but we're working on it. That went a long way to just being well, what's going on? It's in this void. No one's gotten back to me. I think they forgot it. Oh, it's HR again doing their thing. But by just go giving that feedback, saying, didn't forget you, it's underway, working on it, that made all the difference.
It absolutely does. I'm so glad that you said that. That's something I found in my career as a project manager and product release manager. It's just regular communication, and we have different communication styles. Some people want to have a meeting on the calendar. Other people just send me an email, check in with me in that way. Others text messages, phone call, lots of different. We have Slack now. We have these other types of inter-office communication. So there are lots of different ways to meet people where they are, to move the needle forward, to make progress.
Yeah, like what Howard said there, as far as being responsive. I mean, there's a lot of times where you can have a person that reaches out to you and they're panicking, and they're saying, I'm really worried about this, and they're panicking. They send you an email, and maybe you're not able to see that in the email, but from and on our side, we're like, oh, not a problem. We got that down. I am confident that we can deliver. And then you may fail to respond. But we have to be aware as leaders that the person that is reaching out to us may have a different perspective. They may not be as confident. They may not have that sense of comfort. So it's important for us to ensure that we respond and give them that sense of comfort that we have it under control.
Absolutely.
Sure. So let's dive in a little bit more to some of this other baggage that leaders bring. And I know that in Char's experience with some of the leaders that she's coached and also managed in her organizations, because Char, if we haven't mentioned that, she's a serial entrepreneur, but a lot of times you'll have leaders that will may have this that come to work with this negativity, or they maybe jump to negativity as their first resource when they're dealing with people, or they don't have their best face. So what is your experiences there, Char?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I have a little baggage going on right now. There's somebody mowing right outside my window. So pardon the noise there. I go to that personal baggage, the fight or flight concept. And I guess I'm a serial entrepreneur after I left corporate and, traditional corporate in 2016, I guess you could say, because, the world is constantly shifting and changing every single day. So I've started several different businesses as an entrepreneur. One that was extremely successful, multi-million-dollar business, but then overnight, due to the pandemic and all the changes in healthcare legislation, we had to shut that company down and reinvent ourselves. So it was really stressful. This was at the end of last year. It's really stressful because reinventing yourself is really hard to do if you're worried about your employees, you're worried about the layoffs, you're worried about the bills that need to be paid, and you're trying to reinvent yourself to a new business or industry, and you've got this constant fear and worry and concern. And as a leader, I'm the worry wart. I'm always the one that's, worried that, the sky is falling. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But then I also know that I don't perform as well when I'm in that constant stress mode. Whereas my business partner, he can sleep at night. I don't know how the heck he can sleep at night. He doesn't worry about anything. I mean, I'm like, okay, well, so we'll live in a cardboard box, but for some reason he's successful in communicating and talking. So I think as a leader, that personal baggage is massive. I think that you can see fear and stress and anxiety in a person, right? So what are your thoughts, Keshawn, about that?
Oh my gosh, thank you for describing that. Thank you so much for making that so clear and so plain. That is so true. And understanding that we do have the capacity for fear. It's what keeps us alive. So when we're operating in a survival orientation, that's where we'll operate from that place of distress, from fight, flight, freeze, or even fawn. And you don't want to go down the ladder to fight, freeze, and fawn, because that's where you can feel stuck. You can feel a sense of confusion and not make progress, move forward. One great thing about fight is that you're moving, you're action oriented. So if we're thinking of that as a skill and as moving up the ladder, the next place that you want to get to potentially is neutrality. So what can you do as a personal practice to get you to that space of neutrality? And then at the top of the ladder are rungs like, I want to get to a space where I feel rested and digested, where my food is digesting and my body is operating normally. I'm healthy. I'm in that state of homeostasis, where I can stay and play. So I actually am having fun while I'm doing what I'm doing. And I can tend and befriend. So I can tend to myself and others and actually build connections as I'm reinventing myself. So we want to be able to move up that ladder to those things. And so it starts with personal practices. How can we add more space in between the stimulus that is real, potential layoffs, how are we going to pay our bills, and how we respond? How can we add more space to that? It could be, instead of in the morning hopping up and going right into doing mode, maybe taking some deep breaths for 5 minutes, being meditative, being mindful, having a gratitude practice, a journal practice. And this takes work. I mean, when I was burned out, the thought of being grateful actually repelled and repulsed me. I was like, what for what? What is there to be grateful about? And so it takes time. It takes support. We have to do this in community. I cannot do this by myself. That's another thing. It's great that you do have a partner to have that kind of balance. If I was running a business as an individual without community support, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I can do it. There's something called co-regulation that humans do. Our pets do it for us too. So when we're in a state of distress, having someone who is calm and neutral or even empathetic and loving, it helps to bring down our stress levels. And
Yes,
so that's,
unless you have an anxious dog like I have.
oh, same. I'm telling you, Teddy has been calling to me, sending me the evil eye this whole time. Like, you were asleep. What's going on? Why? As soon as this video started, he started. So yes.
I know, isn't that the craziest thing? Because my partner came down to Mexico and I was still in Colorado, and I have my dog Aspen, my white German Shepherd, and the two of us were anxious Nellies together. It was horrible. I mean, we just look at each other like, oh my gosh, you know? And I'm like, you're not helping me. You're supposed to be calming me down.
Yes, as there is co-regulation, there's co-dysregulation as well. And so that's the thing. It's great to have those who have, once again, who are different than us, who are wired differently, who can help to us to fill in those gaps. And we do that for them as well. Anxiety helps to drive, well, we're seeing everything. We're seeing any problem that could come up. So you want to have those problem finders on your team as well. And so that's a gift that anxiety can bring to work. Yes, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. And so just being able to have that balance of difference and be able to, there's pros and cons to most of our human characteristics. I think culturally, when we do receive labels and diagnoses, they tend to be mostly having bad connotations. And that also is tied to our wiring neuroscience-wise. We have a negativity bias, every human does, that makes us prioritize anything that we perceive or that really is negative 5 times more than anything positive. And so when we look at something, it might be an apples to oranges comparison, but the negativity bias will make that negative thing 5 times bigger. And that's all we'll talk about and think about. It'll keep us up at night. So when we know that our brain is wired to do that, just normally to keep us alive, and we want to move from survival to thriving and to feeling that rested, digestive type feeling, then we have to put practices and intention in place to bring us to that space, because our default will be negativity. Our default
Well,
will be anxiety. So
something triggers me as far as this, or
yes,
strikes a chord is probably a better word.
yes, love that.
Yeah, I would say we are facing, and this is something in our new business we're facing, it's called the silver tsunami.
Ooh,
And silver tsunami. So we're in it's I think that's an amazing term, right?
yes,
So we are taking care of our children at my age, becoming
yes,
adult children,
yes,
and then our parents, the silver tsunami.
yes.
And I think the empathy of organizations needs to go triple fold now. I feel that when my mother passed away in 2016, I worked for a corporate organization that didn't have empathy when my mom passed away. And I think now many of us at all ages are dealing with how do we take care of our aging parents? How do we ensure that we are providing safety of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs for our loved ones and families and friends? And I think that sense of community must happen. I feel that our benefits to support our employees must happen. We need to be more innovative and more progressive than ever. Do you agree with that?
100%. I'm in that sandwich. I've heard it called the sandwich generation. So I have a 6-year-old and I'm 81-year-old mother-in-law. So that we live in the home with. And so, yes, I feel that directly. And it's so necessary. Our experiences need to align with the provision that organizations can and should provide. I totally believe in that and support that and agree.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, companies need to be aware of that if we're in a time of flexibility, not of a time of greater control. So I think that just speaks to that silver tsunami is just a societal awareness that leaders need to have. And flexibility is the key for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
and do it in their own lives. It's like, if you look at your own life, I'm sure, we're in this human experience. We all have parents, we might not all have children, but we understand if we can bring our humanity into the workplace. I feel like that. And one way to do that is through neuroscience. That's my way. That's the path that I'm taking to help us feel more human and recognize our humanity in the workplace through language and frameworks and coaching and support. But it's the truth. We're human and we have lives in which if we can incorporate that more and it can be more integrated into our daily lives at work and at home, numbers show that the results are much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that just from a leadership standpoint, I mean, some of our growing leaders out there, they're dealing with some of, we talked about some of that baggage. They start exposing themselves to that next level. They start reaching out or trying to aspire to do more, be more influential, and they are meeting with people that are intimidating. It's like, geez, I'm working with these people. They're so smart. They're so brilliant. They really have it together. Do I really belong here? I mean, how do we elevate ourselves to overcome that and to reach out and be more influential?
Mm-hmm. What a great question. I kind of term that, like, so when you said that, that self-questioning and that self-doubt can look like and be termed as imposter syndrome. Every time I say, as we go through our careers and go up a level, new levels, new devils, right? And so they can be internal and external. As we go into rooms, what conversations are we having internally? What stories are we running? What narratives are there that are either holding us back, keeping us stuck, or helping us push forward? And so being courageous in those moments. Courage is having the fight-flight response and finding your voice and expressing it anyway, finding a way to express yourself, even though that's happening. So having those internal tools, those resources, that community that helps to balance out your awareness of situations and yourself, having that team of empathetic critics, I should say, or empathetic supporters, your own personal board of directors that is going along with you along the way as you move up, as you go into these new rooms and new situations, who can balance out that negative self-talk, or who can balance out the over positive self-talk you might have, where you're not being very realistic about situations. Someone who can help to create that narrative where you have both internal and external feedback that gives you a balanced perspective as you go into new ventures. I think it's so essential and so important. That's where neurocoaching is important, or any type of coaching, I would say. That's how it has helped me in my leadership journey, along with having those supportive systems like learning and development, training and development that organizations can provide. Coupling those together is what I feel like takes leaders to the next level, where they can be courageous and competent. You can have both of those things exist in the same human at the same time.
Great advice. Thanks, Keshawn. So I do want to take a quick pause here as we are reaching towards the top of the hour, and acknowledge our speaker for next week, and so everybody needs to make sure that they put this on their calendar. We have Tina Brandow that's going to be talking about 3 keys to a better me in 2023, and so she's an author of Standing Strong, and I'm really excited for this discussion, especially in light of what we're talking about now. I think this is a great segue. But back to you, Keshawn. I want one of the important things that I want to cover before the end of the hour here is the perspective or what the special issues that women have to deal with in leadership. And I think that we've come a long way. But there's still some distance to be had here. And so what are women experiencing right now in leadership, and how can you help them?
Right now, thank you for asking that question. It's so inclusive. Thank you. I appreciate that. Right now, I'm coaching 7 women leaders. My coaching roster, client roster always changes, but I just actually mentioned that in a conversation with friends yesterday. And the challenge that comes up most is confidence. And it could sound so nebulous, but these women are very competent, very skilled, experienced. They can own a room if they only believed it, if they only knew that they already had the tools within them to do that. And so it can be extremely hard. There are systemic, structural norms in place in workplaces, in organizations, in families, in society, that sends us messages and then actually supports those messages to say that we shouldn't be confident for whatever reason. We should be invisible. We should say less or turn away and not try. And so being able to counter those messages and then do the real work, like partner with organizational partners to make it so that things like paternity leave can be increased so that parents, both male and female, or however gender you show up as a parent, have support when there's a new child that comes into the family and they need time away. So having those types of initiatives in place, prioritizing them as organizations, and then doing the real work to make those changes happen is important. That's just one way. Having leadership development that is focused on your women leaders, that identifies those women who want support. They want to have sponsors. They want to have mentorship. They have everything that it could take as far as competency that should show that they should be further along in their career than they are, but they've been invisible for whatever reason. So making those women more visible, prioritizing their needs, recognizing what they can bring, the value that they bring to your organization, the innovation that they bring, because they are different. They provide a different perspective. They speak from their own life experience that can add to whatever you're delivering as an organization. So there are so many ways we can go with this, but those are just two things to do to think about and to start.
Okay, so how do you help a woman stop apologizing all the time?
Well, first of all, she has to become aware of it and to have a different belief about it. So it's a habit. It's a habit. It's been habituated. It's possibly been actually rewarded. So how can we change that dynamic through coaching, conversations, other types of therapeutic supports potentially, so that if that's something you want to identify your goal. So you have a replacement. Instead of apologizing, is there something you can replace that word with? What are your cues for apologizing all the time? It might be a certain environment. It might be a situation or a person. Every time you're around that person, you found yourself saying, I'm sorry. And for what? You're sorry for walking in the room. You're sorry for chewing.
Exactly. We need to have like rubber bands on our wrists.
Yes.
Sorry.
That is, I just talked, oh my gosh, I just talked about that as a way to bring awareness to a coaching client just yesterday, having a rubber
Really?
band. Yes, I just mentioned that. I love when this happens, the synchronicity that happens in these
Yes.
kind of conversations. I said, maybe take a sip of water. So what can you do to interrupt that pattern? So identifying what would work for you as a unique individual, what can wake you up, what can be your cue to make you be on alert that that's something that you want to change. Identify what the goal is that you want to have. Is there something you can then replace it with as you make your way to where going from apologizing all the time to just showing up and owning your conversation, what you have to say? You can be wrong, you can be right, but you're owning yourself and your voice and what you bring to every room.
Well, this is great, Keshawn. I mean, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and knowledge here. Can you tell us a little bit more about, and for our listeners out there that say, I want to know more about this. I mean, how do I get a hold of Keshawn and maybe get involved?
I would love to get involved. I would love to connect with you and to keep these conversations going. Like I said, I love communicating. I studied it, and that's what I've done my whole career. And I'm so happy that now neuroscience gives me a way in to communicate in a way that feels connected for me and that is useful for others. So please go to my website. I'm Keshawn Hughes at KeshawnHughes.com. The name of my company is NeuroSavvy. So you can also go to that website, which is BeNeuroSavvy.com. Find me on LinkedIn, find me on Instagram. Those are the social media places where I play most often. And I also have a guide that I'd love to share with everyone. It's a healthy habits guide. And so I can put that link in the chat. You can go to KeshawnHughes.com /healthy habits guide, and it should pop up. You can download it and we can stay connected. I have a newsletter that I send out where I share NeuroSavvy tips like these. And yes, I'd love to connect with you on an individual basis or organizational. I love to work with organizations and share this information. Oh, thank you for bringing it up on the screen. Perfect. Yes, that's it.
And I'm dropping all the links in the chat as well, Keshawn. So don't worry, you just keep spitting them out, and I'm just typing away.
Thank you so much for your help,
Everything's
Julie.
there, all the websites.
Perfect. That's it. Yes, yes. Join me, connect with me. Let's keep these conversations going. I believe in what neuroscience has been able to do to turn me around, to help me overcome and heal from burnout, to now I'm speaking on platforms like this one. I'm engaging with organizations. I'm coaching leaders. I could not have predicted this in 2019 when I was in a completely different place in my leadership journey and in my work life. So I'm just so thankful for where I am now and what I'm hoping to do, continuing going forward.
Well, I know that you've just made a huge impact on our forum here. And so thank you so much for your time today and sharing this knowledge. I think that it's going to be very helpful to hundreds and hundreds of our listeners out there, thousands of people. So thank you so much, Keshawn, for being with us today.
It's such a gift. Thank you so much. My absolute pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to the People Strategy Forum once again this week. And we'll see you next week for another great conversation. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.